It's really good to have spent some time with you guys, and we come to the last session to talk particularly about what are some of the challenges our people are facing out there. And I've intentionally made this a rather short session. We told a lot of stories already today, but I want to point out some of those. And we're privileged to have one of our partners arrive here today, just a few minutes ago, all the way from Japan and Mozambique. I'm not going to tell you who he is just yet, but he's going to come and talk to us for a little while too about some of the challenges they face in the work in Mozambique, and get a kind of first-hand handle on that from the field. If you're on page 40, then you'll see there some of the things I just want to briefly mention and talk about. I don't know if you read much about what's happening out there in the world. In some cases, we're confronted by it on a daily basis, aren't we, as we turn the news on. Some of the global trends affect our people significantly. And some of the trends within I would say, the development sector and missions also have influence on our people. Often influence that they have little control over, but it does affect them significantly. And I want to just throw a few of these up here and grapple with them. I'll do one, and then we're going to ask Graham to come up and talk to us, and then we'll finish this off. The first one I want to just point out is that in terms of Bright Hope, we don't operate really in the missions sector internationally. We operate more probably in the NGO sector, the non-government organisation sector, in that we're not a mission agency that's sending missionaries out there, Western missionaries. We're not an NGO in the sense that we don't go with our own agenda and say, do we have a plan for your life? Or do we have an answer to your problems? But we're kind of in that sector because we're working in development and in that longer term kind of engagement with local people. And so because we are on the fringes of the NGO sector, we probably rub shoulders with them as much as we do with mission agencies and mission organisations. And one of the real issues we're facing out there is the current NGO practices that are very different from what we think are healthy practices and applications of development and that kind of thing. Just last week, I had, in the last 2 weeks, I've had 3 applications or proposals sent to me from Kenya. People that I know, all 3 of them are people I know. I've already had a number of conversations with some of them. They're all working in a similar area right in the south of Kenya on the Tanzanian border, and it is quite a poor part of the world. I mean, the villages, the 3 villages that they're representing and talking to me about, none of them have electricity still. So it's pretty rural. It's a long way from anywhere when you get right down onto that border between Kenya and Tanzania. But you should see these proposals. It's like they've come out of an office in New York. Somebody's obviously gone into that area and taught people how to write proposals that have no bearing on reality or are in no way related to the real issues. The gobbledygook and the jargon and the stuff that's in there is just unbelievable. One of them is a guy who's never had a job. He's an artist, paints great paintings, but he has a real passion for his village. And so he and his friends have started a school there for street kids. The first line on his proposal is current budget is 0. So he's got nothing right now. His application is for $174,000 for the first year. It's like, how are these 2 numbers related? It's like if it was $17.50, I'd be interested. But you understand what I'm saying? Is that they've been there and they've been told by international NGOs, maximise the bucks. Just aim for the sky and put as much in there. You just never know how much you'll get. Well, I can tell him how much he's going to get from us, because there's a big gap between what currently is on the ground and what the dream is. Now, I don't want to knock his dream, but there are many steps between where he is today and where he wants to get to. But I don't see any plan for getting from now to then, and that may be a 10 or 12 or 15 or 20 year process. And so a lot of the NGO practices, current NGO practices, are very damaging at the other end, because they go to a seminar like that and their expectations are raised up to, and they are only ever going to be disappointed. And so, that's just one example of just recently. The administration costs are just, in a lot of these NGOs, are just appalling. In most cases, at the end of the financial year, they have to spend their budget or they don't get it next year. Hence, you go to Zambia, and at the end of March, you will see hundreds of new Toyota Land Cruisers in the streets because they had to spend their budget. And in Zambia, there is a huge, can I put it this way, economy based around the non-government organisations that has no connection with the local economy. So these NGOs pay no tax, they don't have any obligations within the country, and so they set up their own economy that they all live in and operate in, and frankly, there's very little spillover into the local economy. That's why the administration costs in many of these are very high. And I mean, I put down there, they pay international wages. I've met Zambian people who had a salary of $150 as a school teacher or as a pastor, and are offered $1,500 a month, and never go back to their local communities. Why would they? So they get into the international sector and they stay there, disengaged from their people, not able to go back, and with no incentive to go back. So a lot of these NGOs are pulling their people, pulling the best people out of the local communities, and distancing them from. Now, I mean, good on these guys if they can get wages like that. I mean, they want to go ahead and all that kind of stuff. But it's also another reason why the bulk of the NGOs operate within 100 kilometres of the major cities. You don't find many way out in the bush, on the margins, where real, natural poverty exists. A lot of the poverty that you see in the cities is based around people's choices to go there for opportunity. And it's a kind of a synthetic poverty in a way. They don't own land there. Many of them, if they went home, could become farmers. They have access to land in their villages, but they choose to stay in town. Their kids then get born in town, and their kids don't want to go back. And the difference between synthetic poverty in urban areas is very different from natural rural poverty, where there are some quite simple solutions if people are willing to take them up. But even the NGO thing pulls people towards the cities. I'm reminded of our partner in Ethiopia, who has a number of church planters based around some of the major cities in the north of Ethiopia. And he was, we were meeting some of these church planters. Tough, hard work, small rural villages, a lot of opposition. Houses get rocks thrown at them at night, they get beaten up. Well, I'd been there, a few months before, and had met this guy on the street, an American guy, and he gave me his card, and he was working with an NGO that had a ministry to street kids. So I went onto the website, and I got their newsletter, and had a look at it, and it was fantastic what they were doing. They'd grown the street kids ministry from about 50 kids in the first 6 months to nearly 300 kids. And they were feeding these kids, and they were doing all sorts of things to them. Now here I am back in Ethiopia talking to the church planters, and I said, have you ever met these guys? Eyes rolled back in their heads. People from our village, they said, are sending their kids to live on the street so they can get free food. that's what the NGO was doing. The NGO was part of the problem now, not part of the solution, because they weren't engaging local people, they weren't delivering local solutions, they were coming alongside local solutions. So it's really easy for an NGO with a very small amount of money to go into a poor community and totally distort the dynamics that are going on there. And unfortunately, that's what we observe happening. And a number of our partners are affected by that kind of mentality that's gone in there. And of course, we've been talking about, we started in the first session talking about dependency. That's what they often create and leave. Raise expectations. Fulfill those expectations for a period of time. And then walk away. And disappoint people. So that's one of the first ones. Now, any comments you want to make? You've been out there and seen some of this stuff perhaps. Any thoughts, questions you want to make about that? As the first issue that some of our people face and some of the trends that are occurring out there. Any comments, questions? Okay. One of the, and I haven't got it up on here yet, but this is what I want to use to introduce Graham to you. One of the trends that's occurring with him, and one of the things that we're involved with in a number of places now is what we could call church planting movements. In the last 15 and 20 years, a number have sprung up around the place where at a very grassroots level in emerging countries, God has started a work, the grassroots, small scale, a dynamic network, kind of cell church type of work in a number of places. And as I said, we're partnering with a number of these. One in Thailand, one in around the Great Lakes in Africa, it's around Lake Tanganyika and Lake Victoria, and two or three others. A couple of other things just to finish off with here, related to this issue of global missions trends, things that are affecting the field. Let me throw another one up here. A large number of Western churches pouring out there into the mission field. Now there are positives to that, but we see a lot of negatives as well, and we really want to, and I mean, we don't see that we have a role to do this, but we do want to say to churches, just think this thing through. Think it through from, first of all, where we stand. What are you doing to the people at that end? Think about that. In fact, build all your thinking around that. If we do that, what will happen? If we do that, what will happen out there? We have a number of churches from within New Zealand and out of the US that we work with, and we get to see, and I've been involved in missions now for nearly 40 years, we've seen some horrific stuff happening at the other end by well-meaning, well-intentioned, well-resourced Western churches. And we just want to say that the damage far outweighs the benefits in most cases, in many cases, should I say, in many cases. The last thing these countries need is hordes of Western young people taking all their crap out there into the developing world. And unfortunately, when you attach short-term mission on the back end of large Western churches going, the youth culture of the West is a very desperate, toxic mix with the local traditions that are binding them in poverty and in darkness and far away from God. You mix those two together, it's a toxic mix. And unfortunately, many of the young people that go out, even well-intentioned, are part of the problem. We've had some of the people working in the leadership of some of our partnerships engaged to 18-year-old Western Peace Corps worker girls who are living in their village to help the village understand the issues of HIV/AIDS and do that by sleeping with the guys in the village. Makes sense to me. Become part of the problem. And so, we do have to get serious about the impact of our Western worldview, mindset and resource as we go out into the world to save the world. Let's get smart about this. Let's not just do it because others are doing it. Let's not do it because we need our young people to experience what's happening out there. No, do it within the context of partnership. Do it in ways that will not damage out there. In fact, will enhance what's happening out there. And hence, we are not great advocates for short-term mission, just the random short-term mission that is often happening. And like Fraser said last night, just don't do for people at that end what they can do for themselves. How do you think that one through? Leave your paintbrush at home or whatever. A lot of people say, well then what do we go and do? Well, just go and be. And how do you fund that? So, women, just go sit with women and listen to their story. Oh, but I can't speak their language. You show me two women who can't speak and communicate with each other. I tell you, give them 2 or 3 days in the kitchen and they'll be doing that. Oh, the kitchen, no. Yeah, that's where women fit in most of these cultures. That's where you'll need to go. Just go and be there, and more than anything else, they'll be encouraged by your presence. And just hang out with them. Push through the barriers, your own inadequacies, your own fears, lack of communicating ability, all of that stuff. Just be there. As long as there's a context, and we would say that context is existing partnership. So, if you could, young people want to do something, just send them somewhere else where they're not going to mess up the mission field. Partnership's a really interesting thing for us, and I just want to throw up a slide here. We've been developing to try and understand, to try and explain what we mean by partnership. There's a line right across here at the top. We say, and this is from a Bright Hope point of view, that's where partnership happens. Where you've got this mutual thing happening. Where, Bright Hope, we've got strong relationships with people in the field that we've been developing for years. In most cases, when we bring a donor into a partnership with a field partner, we've been there at least 3 to 5 years. Before we've even started doing funding with that field partner, we've probably been in there 2 to 3 years. And we say time is our friend when it comes to developing relationships, not our enemy. You've just got to be connected at that relational level, and that requires a number of visits. And so you've got this pretty complicated looking spider web up here, but we say that partnership is those three at the top. And when it drops below that line, you then start to run into real issues from our point of view in terms of partnership. You start to compromise partnership. Let me just come over this side. Donors have members. Now, that could be, if it's a foundation or a trust, it could be board members or whatever. If it's a family trust, it could be family members because they're often the ones making decisions. And so what we're saying is we want to work with the leaders of donor groups or donors themselves. The further these members get away from the core values of the donor, the less they know about it, the more problems are created when we get further out here. And we know on missions trips, some of the people that come on these missions trips don't even actually go to that church. They're friends of people that go to that church. They have no idea what the values are of that church there. And then they arrive out here to the field partner and they're meeting with people over here, beneficiaries of that field partner, who they don't know anything about what's going on with the field partner even, and so now relationships start forming across here and you've got chaos. It flies to pieces. That's our observation. So you've got a number of things that can happen here. The donor partner can go directly to, the field partner and cut Bright Hope out of the way. And we've had that happen. And sometimes we've just had to walk away from a donor partner and say, well, you just carry on doing it your way. That's not how we understand partnership. We've done that 3 or 4 times. Yeah. Sometimes the donor partner wants to go directly to the beneficiaries of that. And that creates all sorts of problems, especially when you've got Facebook and WhatsApp and I mean, these people are saying things to these people that that guy doesn't know, and those people don't know, and then you add this thing in here, and you know, there's significant issues when it comes to retaining the integrity of a partnership. That's what we're saying. We're not against these people getting to know each other, but if they do and they don't understand the dynamics of partnership, it compromises what's happening above the line. So that's our definition of partnership. Does that make sense in any way? Talk to me about that. React to that. You know, as a church leader, I understand there are issues associated with that, because you do want your members to get some of the benefits of. So what we would say is, these people that you're going to take on that trip, get them as close to your DNA and understanding of your values as possible, as well as Bright Hopes and as well as the field partners. So push them up that way, and that solves the problem. But often we just let anybody come, and then that often is where the issues are generated from out of this group of people. And they meet with that group of people, and dialogue starts to happen, and relationships start to form, and things get said and emailed and communicated, and before long it's like, whoo, how are we going to control this thing? So we're not against this happening, but what we want to do is keep it above the line. Does that make sense? So that's associated with Western churches going out there into the world. And then the last couple of things I just wanted to throw up there to you is, one of the great trends, or one of the things that we're observing, that we're grappling with constantly, is the local mindsets that track people in intergenerational poverty. Now, these mindsets are created by lots of things, as you would be aware. What could some of those local mindsets be generated by? Think about that. Where do those minds? Sorry?
Caste society. Caste.
Yeah, the caste system, for example, create real issues in the thing, especially if you're in the bottom end of that. Yeah.
Relationships with other NGOs.
Yeah, that could establish a poverty mindset.
That's the way we've always done things around here.
It's the way we've always done things around here. Yeah.
That work is part of the curse.
Work is part of the curse. Theological reasons why they're trapped in poverty. Absolutely. Run into that with Foundations for Farming. There's half a dozen of those ones. Work is a result of the curse. But we all know, well, we know, don't we, that Adam and Eve were given work before the curse. It's part of the mandate that they had for creation. And there could be a lot of others as well. You would know some of those. But these mindsets are entirely encompassing and controlling. I just love the verses from 1 Thessalonians chapter 1 where Paul says, when you heard the gospel from us, it came in one ear and out the other. No, it went in one ear, it went with power, with deep conviction, and with the Holy Spirit. And then later in the chapter it says, and you turn to God from idols to serve the living and true God, and to wait for His Son from heaven. The total transformation of mind and heart that came from the good news. And these mindsets have to be addressed in the process of setting people free from poverty. Because if you don't address the mindset, as soon as something comes along that's outside their framework, they just revert back to their default position, which is, well, that's what our parents did, or that's what our grandparents taught us, or well, that's just the way it is. So, local mindsets are a major issue, and of course, really important because to partner with local people, because when I go to another culture, I don't know what those local mindsets are. I can assume what they might be, but I still don't know those, because they happen at many strata within society. There's the general ones that are delivered by, let's say, Buddhism. There's some general mindsets, but every family has its own little local mindsets that have to be addressed, and I will never get to that level of understanding to be able to even know what those are. I often say when we went to Zambia as missionaries back in the 80s, we had all the answers. Except when we got there, nobody was asking any of the questions. And that's the way we had to start all over again, you know. And it's the same in every community. And then the last one, and this is for your prayer and awareness. Political instability. It's really affecting a lot of our partners, even right today as we speak. We've heard earlier about what was happening in Uganda, right? With just the whole country stopped for a year. And guys that have had plans in place and orders for things and, you know, to bring about change, just has to stop and you have to wait. For us, it can be quite embarrassing sometimes as well, because the donor gives the money to buy that milk cooler, and they go down to order the milk cooler, and the guy's skipped the country and he's not going to be back for 9 months. So you're sitting on the money, and what do you say to the donor? And how do you write the report? And all sorts of stuff goes around because of that. So one. Burundi is another one. The silent genocide going on there. Our partner there is sending us WhatsApp information saying, you know, 1,000 young men a week disappearing off the streets of Bujumbura. Just disappearing. They had a micro-enterprise program there with 3 little tuk-tuks, and that was generating a lot of money to go into ministry. They've had to take them off the streets and put them away. They've still got to pay tax for them. So, you know, it puts everything on hold. Armenia, you see what's happening there? Our partners there. Problems in Armenia. Democratic Republic of Congo. I mean, our partners live in tough, hard places. And it's not easy. That's apart from any local stuff that's happening because of the persecution from you know, a Muslim group there, or a Hindu group there, or another group over there. So that's why Rob was talking earlier. Prayer is really an important part of the whole process here. It's a whole part of the process of sustainability. These people will not be there unless we stand in the gap of it. So just be aware of that. You know, living in these hard places, when you're watching the news, when you're reading the news on the internet, pray. So here's some of the trends that we grapple with as we sit in the office from day to day regarding sustainability. We have to deal with those things. We have to think about them, factor them into decisions we make, and of course support the guys that are out there in difficult places. Thanks very much. I think Rob's going to come, the praise is going to come and finish off.